That's really what we want to come around to fast. Of course you're going to take a hit when things don't go the way you want them to, but the thing that you want to remember is that the only reason that anything ever feels bad is because there is a version of everything that you have been involved in, including you, the creator of you, involved with your money, you involved with your lovers, you involved with your relationships of all kind, you involved with your work, you involved with every aspect of life. There is a version of that is offering a very powerful vibration, and when you don't resonate in alignment with it, you feel the discord of it, period. It's never about a table broken. It's only, always, only, always, only, always, ever, always, only, ever, always. It is always, 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 always about your vibrational relationship with who you are, period. That's all. That's all. When you're in the vortex, think about what that means. When you're in the vortex, you're over there with everything that you've carved out of life. You're over there in the vibrational version of the new and improved version of you and your life. So when you're in the vortex with all that good stuff that you've carved out of life, you know how you feel toward those who helped you carve it out? Thanks. Thanks. Because if it weren't for the trouble you caused, I would not be standing here. But when you're not standing here, when you're standing over here, damn you for the trouble you've caused. Feel the difference? When we say make peace with it, we really mean you got to get into the vortex before you can make peace with it, because nobody's going to make peace with something when you're out there on that raw and ragged edge. But when you get into the vortex, then you feel it, and you know that, don't you? After the fact, don't you often find yourself experiencing something and really feeling satisfaction and appreciation for everyone involved in putting you where you now are? But before you got to where you now are, you cursed every one of them for their role in your troubled life, you see. So that really is what you're reaching for. You want to make peace with it. We were giving something similar to a woman a few years ago. Although we did not have the vortex terminology, it was not nearly as clear and succinct a presentation. Same basic principles, but she wasn't having any of it. And we said, if you could just get into the mode of appreciating, we suggested that she buy a notebook and make a list of positive aspects about her ex-husband. She said, Abraham, you must have misunderstood me. I don't want to get back together with him. I don't even want to have lunch with him. And we said, we're not trying to get you back together with him. We're trying to get you back together with you. And you can't get back together with you, the new and expanded version of you, as long as you're still focusing on all of that. You just can't do it. Well, now let's talk about this, because you're really going to like this. We haven't spoken this in this way before, but then we haven't come to the place that we'd already come to before you said that before either. In other words, we just laid a really good new basis to understand this question in a new way. You're going to feel it in just a moment here. So, if it is true, and it is, that as a problem is coming into focus, a solution is too, then isn't it equally true that as a solution is in focus, that an equal problem is in focus too? In other words, have you ever seen a sound wave or a light wave or any kind of vibrational wave? There's two sides to the wave, aren't there? In other words, the wave, it has an equivalent. It can be small and it can be large, but it's equivalent in either case. So when you knew what you didn't want, and now you know what you do want, so life is moving forward. Now, maybe on another subject, you're more focused on the negative side of the wave than you are the positive side of the wave. So maybe you've tuned yourself negatively. Let's back up. Here'll be an easier way to hear it. You can't set your radio dial on 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.7 FM. Frequencies have to match up. The transmitter and the receiver have to be in sync. So let's say that you have several subjects that you are focused upon, and on one particular subject that you've wanted a lot about, you now have managed for a little bit of time to focus more inside the vortex. And so now things are moving along for you in a better way. But because you're not really yet completely at one with maintaining your inside the vortex vibration. Occasionally, you slip off into another vibration. And when you do, you now have access to the other side, the not good feeling side of that wave. Doesn't that make sense to you? A lot of times people say, I'm afraid to let myself want something because I will be so disappointed if it doesn't come. Well, what that is that's an awareness that I want that and I don't want the opposite of it. But the fact that I really, really, really want it means I really, really, really don't want the opposite of it. And frankly, I was happier when I sort of wanted it and sort of didn't want the opposite of it. When I sort of wanted it, then I could be sloppy in my thinking and it wasn't painful. But now I really want it. When I'm sloppy with my thinking, it's painful. And that's what makes people say, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. As if it has to go bad. I just know it's going to go bad. It always goes bad for me. And we say, it depends on where you're focused. The potential for wondrous or awful things is yours in every moment. And it all depends on where you've trained yourself. So now, think of different people you know, or different segments of society that you know, and think about what their waves are like. In other words, there are some people that don't let themselves dream big ever because they don't want the other side of it. And there are people who dream so big, who are sloppy in their thinking, that live really awful things. Isn't it remarkable how many really, really famous people at what seems to be the top of their game crash and burn so badly? And doesn't it make sense to you now that you understand the wave? So then you say, okay, I sort of get this. And I've decided not to be a deliberate creator after all. I'm going to play it safer. I'm just going to want a little. And we say, we should have told you sooner, but you now know too much. You can't go back. Life is parlaying you into fantastic things, you see. So what we're really talking about here is you got to focus. You got to focus, because what's coming to you is coming in response to your allowance. And here's the thing that makes what we just said to you interesting and funny, but different than the way we were playing with it. And here's what we mean by this. You've already played your hand. You've already been living your life. You've already been asking and asking and asking and asking and asking and asking and asking. In other words, you've already put who you really are over here in this vortex of creation. And you really have no choice other than to get up to speed with who you are. So what you just said to us is, well, I've been letting myself get up to speed with who I am, but now I'm worried because I can't maintain it. And we say, you got to practice that. You'll crash and burn a few times, but all that'll do is make you more determined to focus until you'll reach the place where it will matter to you that you focus inside the vortex. If anybody's having an anxiety, it's because they're looking for the manifestational evidence. And this is a really good idea for you to hold relative to where you're at. This is the precise piece that will soothe this for you. This vortex of creation, it's the vibrational foundation for all of the good that manifests. And when you have full view of it, that's when you feel utter faith, because that faith is knowledge in something not yet seen. And the reason you can't see it is because it's pre-manifested. But there is so much that is wonderful that is pre-manifested that you can feel. Did you get that? Now, for somebody outside the vortex, what they heard us just say was, you have to trust us, and we've just got a different version of the fairy tale for you. And so we can understand why from outside the vortex, skepticism and cynicism and pessimism would be something that you are feeling. But if you can accept the reality of this vortex of creation, and you can realize that when your friends and family and well-wishers are coming to you, you can't give them the evidence yet, but you can give them your emotional, vibrational version of it. And so what they're reaching for from you is your feeling of elation, your feeling of optimism, your feeling of knowing. Have you ever been part of something where there was a leader who knew even before there was manifestation, and that leader just knew so clearly that you knew too, and couldn't you ride the current of that knowing? And weren't there always those naysayers who couldn't see it and couldn't feel it, who were determined that it wasn't going to come to be? But because someone knew, and because you knew they knew, then you knew a little too? That's the best that you can do for those people, because almost everybody is demanding. That's why science and medicine moves slowly forward, is because they need to see it before they believe it. And that's backwards. You got to believe it before you can see it. You have to believe it in order to get in the vortex, and you've got to get in the vortex before you can see it, before you can rendezvous with the circumstances and events that are going to bring the manifestation of it about, you see. It's really interesting. This reality that humans claim and cling to is such an arbitrary thing. You are billions of people with billions of different perspectives of life experience, literally creating billions of different worlds, and yet pretending that it's all one big world that you're all sharing equally. And it's not even close to that, you see. You are on these vibrational islands with law of attraction spinning on your individual vortices, giving you exactly what you are a vibrational match to. So the first thing that we would say to you is, if we were standing in your physical shoes, would leave them all out of the equation, well-wishers or not. Because if you need to prove to them what they need to see, then they've got you focused outside the vortex, and that's why you feel a diminishment of your joy. So somehow you have to convince them that you're onto something, and you know you're onto something. We know that they are well-meaning, and we know that you know that they are well-meaning. We're just saying, you got to do what's easiest to keep you focused in the vortex. So if someone says, how you doing? You say, tuning my frequency. You say, well, how's it coming? Great, I feel great. What have you got to show for it? Joy. Well, what else you got to show for it? Vitality, clarity. What else you got to show for it? All that you're doing, what do you have to show for the work that you've been doing? Enthusiasm, life, passion. That all? And what they're really saying to you, don't you think paying this price of joy is too great? Someone might even say to you, well, you seem really, really happy, and you seem like you've got the world by the tail, but I don't see any evidence of well-being in your life. And you say, wait, everything I want is because I think in having it I will feel better. And now I found a way to feel better even before it comes. They say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It hasn't come. What a lot of people on this path say is, all the things I thought I needed to manifest in order to be joyful, I felt joy before they manifested. But then they manifested. In other words, they can't not come. We have enjoyed this interaction more than words can convey. You are a leading edge crowd in a leading edge time and space, exploring the variety of your life and causing an expansion of the universe, for which the larger non-physical part of you feels utter and complete appreciation for. When you stand where you stand with your newfound determination to improve your mood, you release anything that even remotely approaches a deadline, and you completely align with everything that is a lifeline. When you decide that how you feel matters first and foremost, and you tend to that first, so that you get in the vortex and then you go to sleep. And you wake up in the vortex and then you greet your family. You get in the vortex and then you place the important phone call. You get into the vortex and then you drive your vehicle. You get into the vortex and then you write your book. You get into the vortex and then you write your song. You get into the vortex and then you greet your neighbor. You get into the vortex and then you get into the vortex and then you get into the vortex and then you enact, you become part of, you then represent.